Come closer, little one. Pull up a chair. Tonight, I want to tell you about a boy named Eli, and the night he learned something that took me 60 years to understand myself. Eli was 8 years old, and he lived in the smallest house on the smallest hill overlooking the coldest, greyest sea you ever saw. His father was the lighthouse keeper. His grandfather had been the lighthouse keeper before that, and his great-grandfather before that. It was the kind of family where purpose ran in the blood like salt water. But Eli did not feel like someone with purpose. He felt small. He felt invisible. And most days, he felt like the only person in the world who had never done anything that mattered. At school, the other children were faster, louder, brighter. His best friend Mara could already multiply big numbers in her head. His classmate Rohan had won the swimming race 3 years in a row. Even his little sister, 4-year-old Priya, had memorized every bird on the island by name and song. And Eli was the boy who tripped over his own boots, who forgot his lines in the school play, who once spent an entire afternoon trying to draw a horse and ended up with something that looked like a sad cloud with legs. You know that feeling, don't you? That heavy, hollow feeling like everyone else got a map, and you got left behind with a blank piece of paper. One evening in the deep of November, a storm came. Not the pretty kind of storm where lightning dances on the horizon and children press their noses to the glass. This was the real kind. The angry kind where the wind doesn't howl so much as roar, like something enormous and furious is trying to tear the world apart. Eli's father had gone to the mainland that morning for supplies. He had promised to be back by noon. By 6 in the evening, there was no sign of him. By 8, Eli's mother had begun to pace. And then the power went out. The entire house went dark. The kitchen, the hallway, the little lamp by Priya's bed that she could not sleep without. And worst of all, the lighthouse. That great beam of turning light that swept the Black Sea every 4 seconds off. Gone. Dark as the inside of a closed eye. And here is where the story truly begins. Because this is the moment Eli did something that surprised everyone, including himself. Eli put on his boots. He put on his father's old coat far too big, the sleeves hanging past his hands. He took the emergency lantern from the kitchen shelf. And he walked out into the storm. His mother called after him. He turned back to her at the doorway, rain already soaking his hair, wind trying to snatch the words from his mouth. "The boats," he said simply. "They won't know where the rocks are." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, slowly, and said the 3 words that no one had ever said to Eli before in quite that way. "I trust you." The path to the lighthouse was a 1/4 mile of wet rock and wild grass. Eli had walked it 100 times in daylight. In the dark, in the storm, with the lanterns swinging and the rain coming sideways, it felt like a different path entirely. A harder path. a path that did not want to be walked. He fell 3 times. Once, he scraped his palm on the rock so badly it bled. He sat there in the rain for a moment, staring at his hand, and something inside him said, very quietly and very meanly, "See? You can't even do this. Go back inside. Someone else will fix it." He almost listened. That voice, my dear, that whispering, doubt-filled voice, it visits everyone. The brave aren't the ones who never hear it. They're the ones who get up anyway. Eli got up. He reached the lighthouse door. His father had shown him once, only once, how the emergency hand crank worked. It was old and stiff and required everything a small 8-year-old body had to give. But Eli turned it. Inch by inch, groaning with effort, rain hammering the windows, he cranked that great wheel until, with a deep mechanical clunk, the light came on and began to turn. Out across the black water, that beam swept in its slow, faithful circle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eli pressed his face to the cold glass and looked out. And there, barely visible through the rain, he saw the lights of a fishing boat. It had been heading straight toward the rocks. Now, caught in the lighthouse beam, it curved. It turned. It found its way. He stayed all night. Alone in that tower, cold and tired and bleeding a little, cranking the light every time the mechanism slowed through the worst hours of the storm until the power came back just before dawn. When his father returned the next morning, delayed by the storm, safe, breathless with worry, he found Eli asleep at the foot of the lighthouse stairs, still in his coat, his hand wrapped in a torn piece of his own shirt. His father sat down on the cold stone floor right beside him and said nothing for a long while. Then he put his arm around his sleeping boy and said, very softly, as if speaking to himself, "There he is. There is my lighthouse keeper." Now, you might be thinking, well, that's a fine story, but Eli was special. He was brave and strong, and he knew what to do. I could never do that. But here's what I want you to know. More than anything else in the world tonight, Eli did not feel brave. He felt terrified. He did not feel strong. His arms ached, and his hand bled, and his boots were full of water. He did not know what to do, he remembered, very imperfectly, one thing his father had shown him once. One thing was enough. You don't need to be the fastest, or the loudest, or the one who knows the most. You don't need to be ready. You don't need to feel certain. You don't need to be anything other than what you already are. Someone who, when the lights go out and the world is dark and frightened, takes the one thing they know and walks toward where it is needed most. Years later, when Eli was grown, people would come from other towns to ask him how he had been so courageous at only 8 years old. And he would smile and think of his father's arm around him on that cold stone floor, and he would always give the same answer. I just got up. One more time. Then I fell down. The sea is still out there tonight, children. And somewhere there are lights going dark. And somewhere there is a child just like Eli, just like you, deciding whether or not to get up. Get up. Your lighthouse matters more than you know. Your light reaches further than you will ever see. Good night, little keeper. Sleep well.